The reason why they platform these allegations is because, yeah, that sounds like something he'd do. It is literally vibes-based. They have no evidence.
That's why she's the voice actress.
No, right.
Oh, that's actually her. That's why she's the voice actress. That is actually her. There could not have been a power imbalance, as is claimed in the testimony, because both of these individuals were prolific in their own right. The information keeps changing. So I have to preface this segment by saying that a lot of the information that's going to be covered, even by what's being shown on this document here, is going to be very speculatory. So make your own conclusions, draw your own assumptions, right? Think critically of what you're about to see and what, like, you know, what the coverage here is going to be. But before I even get into this document, to give a little bit of a callback to what the allegations are, there is an anonymous victim that has came out against SaberSpark alleging rape. It's very difficult to actually classify or define this entire interaction or what's being alleged here as rape, given some of the details provided and given this person's own recount of the situation, such as wanting to get one of the actions over with because she didn't feel like she wanted to get rejected, right? Etc., etc., etc. Also, there has been some inconsistencies in the story. She alleges that one event happened in 2012. She alleges that another event happened in 2013, which this person has since rescinded and corrected. It said that both events took place in 2012. So the story does get a little bit murky. The details here are also somewhat, I want to say, not that detailed, and it's casting some heavy shade, making like some very heavy implications. It makes the allegation seem incredibly inconsistent and untrustworthy, so someone would be right to be skeptical. But what's important to mention immediately as well is that initially, when these allegations came out, everybody assumed that they were straight up fake, that they were fabricated, that this was some sort of fanfic, that it was made up by an individual. But that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. While the allegations themselves cannot, in good faith, be described or defined as rape legally, right? Maybe even colloquially, the allegations are not like, you know, 100% fanfic. This is not like a fanfic, completely fabricated story that came out of nowhere. There is something here. It probably just isn't rape or sexual assault the way that it's being described. So before we get into this document, to be clear, which there seems to be a lot of information in here, I want to go through this interview so that we can have a little bit of additional information to what motivated these allegations to come out in the first place. So already,
I'll verify.
Already, what I'm gathering from this, right, based on the information that's being presented and the involvement of KP between, like, you know, DA Games and SaberSpark, is that it seems like the likelihood of SaberSpark's allegations being attached to this building case, or should I say this building story, seems to have been deliberate.
By all this stuff outside of this, what evidence did you receive from the alleged victim that was able to verify the claims?
There we go. This is what's important here. What evidence did KP receive for the allegations that were published towards the end of this expose against Black Griffin and DA Games? Because if it was just attached towards the end of this video, right, in an attempt to also, like, involve SaberSpark in what is obviously a very motivated story with some people that you could definitely argue are malicious actors, then it makes it seem as if these allegations came from a place of just smearing somebody who's attached to that story, rather than it actually being legitimate allegations. So if she just published these claims without any evidence, then not only is that already incredibly dangerous for the story, and it hurts the credibility of the story, but it will just lead significantly more people to assume that there's nothing here, that there's absolutely something to be skeptical of, and again, these are just potential thoughts that people might have, right? This is not a definitive claim of anything. It'll lead people to believe that these allegations came from a place of just wanting to smear somebody and ruin somebody's career, rather than an actual victim story.
It's based on two things. Mostly, I also was friends with Saber around 2015 or so. So a lot of the things that she described matched characterization of him, from at least my perspective.
A lot of things that she described match characterization of them. What? That's like saying that somebody who is, like, prolifically mean, who is known for being a fucking asshole, when they're randomly accused of murder, just because murder is a mean thing to do, in air quotes, to be clear, in air quotes, it like that's just like saying that murder is sounds like the thing somebody who's mean would do. It doesn't mean that they actually would commit murder. It doesn't mean that they'd actually go as far as to like do something heinous like that. What type of logic is this? What line of logic is this?
Of it. I knew of them, but I didn't know. I didn't really have any kind of relationship with them.
I knew of them. So that means that even prior to this story coming out, even prior to these allegations or this testimony being given, KP knew of them. So that means that this person would have had some sort of repertoire or some sort of notoriety within this sort of circle that these people are a part of, right? Which sort of aligns with this somewhat vindictive sounding open letter to KP, right? This sort of open letter should also be taken with a grain of salt, because Casey might have their own, conflicts of interest as well, or they might just be incredibly vindictive. But there is some alignment here. About your anonymous victim. Victim, my ass. Of course I know who it is. I used to be friends with her too. There's a reason that's past tense. That girl has victims. A lot of them, actually. You simply didn't do the work to have journalistic integrity. You are supposed to vet sources and confirm stories. A simple Google search of her name, drama, could have told you all the crap the chick has done that is public knowledge, and that perhaps she is not a person to stake your reputation on. See what I mean? So that means that KP would have definitely known that this individual was somewhat prolific in the past, because she knew of them. So this here, in my mind, and again, this is speculatory, this is incredibly speculatory, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, this sort of connects, right? It's corroborated. However, you also know a list of people who could have told you the stuff she has done that is not widely known or public information. Again, KP knew of her, according to the claims from that interview, including the man you allegedly have in common, who could, I don't know who that specifically is, but it'll probably, come to pass, or it'll probably be expanded upon later. In your defense, a lot of people have put you on an information diet, and while you may have tried to research, folks in your personal life already find you untrustworthy and maybe told you jack squat. Means a lot. And
when I talked, so the video was mostly complete at this point. And then I was talking about it in my fan server, in Bonk, who runs the Brony Twitter, mentioned that he had someone additional who wanted to come forward about Saber. And so he got Amy to contact me. This is Amy New, who's tweeting about the victim.
Yeah, I reached out to her. Yeah, I reached out to her on Blue Sky. I have not received any response, and that's completely fine.
Interesting.
Yeah, but she's known the victim for a long time. I have not. So
wait, who's known the victim for a long time? There we go. Amy. This person. Okay, so that's who Amy is. We've already discussed. And this is Amy. We've already discussed this person in the previous video. Okay.
Yeah, but she's known the victim for a long time. I have not. So so that's how we got in contact, and then I talked to them directly from that, and we just kind of compared. Obviously hers is much worse than mine, but Saber making me uncomfortable to that obviously is like there's no comparison. But as far as characterization, everything seemed to fit. Timeline.
But literally, their evidence is all the characterization that this individual has. The reason why they platform these allegations is because, yeah, that sounds like something he'd do. It is literally vibes-based. They have no evidence.
Of their own activity in the fandom seemed to fit. There was video evidence of, when they were active in the fandom. I think that's all I can really say without...
Okay. To re-emphasize my opinion, to re-emphasize my take on this, right? To re-emphasize this because this is really important. The reason they platformed these allegations, these unfounded, unsubstantiated allegations, is because they felt on vibes that this would be something he'd do, and because he was there at that convention. They have nothing else. Wow.
Giving away other details, yep.
So just to be as objective as possible here. So what you're saying is that basically the evidence that you were given was more personal circumstance and hearsay rather than like objective evidence.
So they had nothing. They had no reason to push these allegations. They literally had no reason to push these allegations besides, yeah, I feel like he'd do it. Jesus Christ. These people are so incompetent.
Correct. They didn't have any Skype logs or anything because of how long it was ago, and we did ask. So
they had no evidence. So they asked for additional evidence. They got no evidence. This person couldn't even access evidence. And they pushed the allegations anyways because, yeah, that sounds like something he'd do. Yeah, I feel like he'd do that. Yeah, he was there. What the fuck are these people on?
Okay. So, at that point, when it comes to this, in our conversation, you mentioned there was let me at least scroll up, the victim and less on the shitty victim. So, what did you mean by that?
Let me find where you're quoting. Yeah. So yeah, I understand what you're asking. So the video is.
Yeah, we feel like he'd do something like this, and he was there, so he must be guilty.
You know, I was blindsided by it, so I'm just kind of processing it. But
these people do not understand what due process is. These people do not understand what like fucking body of crime is, right? Just because somebody was at the scene of the crime and they have blood on their hands doesn't mean that they fucking stabbed a guy. For all you know, he probably got blood on his hands because he was trying to fucking save the guy, trying to save the guy's life, right? That's why it's important to gather information and evidence to secure a verdict, to make absolutely sure that this individual is responsible for what you're accusing him of.
For those who are unfamiliar with my content, we put a lot of memes in between to help the flow and the comedy of the videos, so we were just kind of doing that automatically with this video.
No! When you hype up a video like that, right, with the express purpose of fucking take a shot at somebody's career to take them down, as you mentioned in your community post, can't wait to fucking expose a pedophile tomorrow, right? For all of you who remember that, you are already framing this as a shot at somebody's reputation. So when the majority of your video isn't filled with concrete evidence and you're just posting memes throughout your video, of course people are going to be skeptical of literally everything that you're saying. You're botching the believability of your stories. Not just that, but you're admitting that you don't have any evidence and you never had any evidence. You're going purely off of vibes and hearsay. These people are fucking unhinged.
Video. Didn't realize it was tone deaf until after it was uploaded and people
didn't realize it was tone deaf until after the video was uploaded. What? Dude, this is exactly, look. People like this, right? People like this are exactly the reason as to why I became a YouTuber. Because whenever situations like these happen, right? There's always going to be a decent percentage, a decent chunk of individuals that are going to hear something in passing and be like, oh my god, the SaberSpark allegations. I heard about that. I watched a YouTube video covering that not too long ago, right? They won't realize that the information at hand is uncritical and unsubstantiated, and then they'll continue to repeat those allegations as if they're true, right? A couple of months from now, you're going to see this effect. Some people are going to start talking about SaberSpark in some comment section somewhere, and then some other person is going to be like, isn't that guy like a pedophile or something? Without ever being told that this guy was unfoundedly accused of something that has nothing to back it. That was accused of something with nothing to substantiate the allegations, right? To say the least. And like the reason why I started YouTube is because stories like these need to be corrected. Stories like these need to have some like impartial analysis that can give benefit to both sides of the story. And when you have this much going against you, it's impossible to give this person benefit. Of course, you have to be charitable to somebody that's being accused of something without evidence.
Voice their concerns, and I took it down pretty immediately after that. To be retooled. But I don't really want, it's more important to be talking about the testimonies of both Saber and the DA Games victims, and not so much about how shitty the video is. I get it at this point. I get it.
Okay. So just so I'm able to at least try and sanity check it a bit. So the only evidence that has been given in a sense is hearsay, just more testimony rather than like stuff that is purely objectively there, if that makes sense.
To my knowledge.
Okay. Wanted to at least verify that. Now, in terms of, I guess, the alleged victim, if you were... How do I word this? So, if you were to say that this is something that needs to be taken with the utmost seriousness, despite no evidence, would you believe that it would be fair for people to disregard it entirely due to the lack of actual evidence?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so even by her own standards, she's pushing allegations that she believes is entirely fair play to not take seriously at all. So, if you understand that it's completely fair for people to not take your allegations seriously at all, then why bring forward the allegations in the first place?
Okay. I wanted to at least ask
This is actually unhinged.
that, given the fact that these are serious allegations that can get Saber killed, because people are crazy, and I'd rather not have someone get killed over an allegation that has not been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, so based on this information, her motivations almost I'm gonna be charitable here. But based on everything that we've gathered in the past, 5 minutes alone, everything points like this was supposed to be a reputational hit. Everything points to KP's motivation being a kill shot at this guy's reputation rather than an actual presentation of evidence and an actual attempt to seek justice for a victim. That's what all of the signs are pointing to. That's what all of these signs are pointing to.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, on top of that, you say that you know the victim, or at least know the victim well enough to speak out for them. What do you mean by that?
I guess we had conversations. They approved of the video. For the record, they did watch the whole video before it was uploaded, and they approved it. Multiple people did, so that's why I was like, oh well, the victim's fine with it. I don't see what the problem is, guys, because I'm dumb.
No. All of these people are probably on the same mental wavelength as you. They're going to think it sounds about right, so he must have done it. Believe all victims, even though there's no evidence to substantiate the claims. So of course you're going to these people, you need proper people to vet you. You need proper people to vet you. You can't just rely on like-minded individuals that are going to do a half-assed job and equally want to smear somebody the same way you want to smear somebody. If they offer no pushback, that you shouldn't take that as, okay, I'm possibly doing everything right here. If they offer you no pushback, you should probably wonder if these people are on the same fucking frequency as you, which is dangerous, because what you need is proper criticism. If they had no problems with you pushing this video, you probably should have double checked with more individuals.
But I mean, Amy has publicly stated that they're not well right now. So put the focus back more on the testimony than the video, I guess. But I feel like I know them well enough from talking with them that I can just vouch personally and say I believe in the testimony based on talking to them as much as I have. So.
Okay. Have you received any other evidence, such as even a screenshot or a call log or something of that sort, aside from the conversation or the testimonial?
If she says that she's received no more evidence, I'm going to fucking lose it. If she says that she's received nothing more, I am going to fucking lose it. I am going to lose it if she says that she's received nothing more.
No, but I do.
Oh my fucking god!
This,
oh my
5, 6
god!
years ago, but I didn't really have
oh my
of
god!
Something maybe happening, but I didn't really have enough information to really.
Oh my god! She had nothing. She had no evidence the entire time. She literally pushed these allegations just because of vibes. She unironically pushed these allegations just because of vibes. But anyways, I'm actually not surprised. I'm very unsurprised that this is the case.
But it was just kind of rumory kind of thing. So chronologically, I guess when the victim came forward and talked about what had happened, I was like, oh, I vaguely remember something like this. So I guess that also helped me too. Yep.
So in your eyes, this has been an ongoing open secret of an alleged thing with no evidence?
Discussed within certain members of the old Brony community, I guess.
Okay.
So this right here has some parallels to this. And I might be connecting dots. This is just speculation. I might just be connecting dots that aren't actually there. But this right here has some parallels to the end of the testimony. Over time, I grew increasingly distant and would eventually end contact completely. I don't feel safe enough to fully come forward because I don't want his fans and friends or even him to harass or contact me publicly. Right? Skip through all of that. I'm just pointing out where this is at. And then I have seen other instances of SaberSpark using his enormous platform to confront people online he has had conflict with and heard. I have also witnessed several instances of his friends attempting to justify him and his other actions. I was not made aware of his jokes about consent and his recent behavior involving Chris until only recently, and it left my stomach in knots. Not only is this a weird motivation, not only could this be a weird motivation as to why this person may have came out with a potential smearing story, right? But when we connect this to what she's saying here, it appears as if maybe there may have been some interaction between SaberSpark and this chick, right? But after a long time, like, a long time and several litigation amongst friends, several discourse amongst friends, these people probably came to the conclusion, based on the information that everybody knows about each other, that this wasn't rape, right? It probably wasn't actually his friends attempting to justify his actions or justify the situation. It was probably them discussing, saying, like, yeah, there's no way that could be, in good faith, considered rape, right? But this is just my speculation. This is just me speculating, to be clear. This is just me speculating. So take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt.
Put it that way.
So if people were to dig a little bit deeper, would there be anything that could prove these, or is it just, again, the whole thing of it's all hearsay?
There might be footage of them at the conventions that they mentioned, or the conventions themselves weren't mentioned themselves, but...
By the way, the victim corroborated that there might be footage, that there might be pictures of them at the convention, to be clear. The victim corroborated this. And I'm pretty sure that this very well could be the case, based on that Brony, that Brony podcast clip that I found, for those of you who remember, in my previous coverage.
That's something that would be likely if they were to,
Just because two people met does not make it likely that a rape occurred. Not to mention that the way that this entire, testimonial describes the series of events, it doesn't seem like rape. As much as I hate to, use rape loosely, and as much as I hate to just dismiss it, the way that it's described in this testimony seems either incredibly inflammatory, right? It's incredibly leading. It seems incredibly, devoid of details, probably for a very specific reason. But based on something that this person had said about, wanting to get it over with anyways in a previous, the other testimony, it doesn't seem like, consent was explicitly denied. Or that they were unable to deny consent, right? Because when we go by the general definition of rape, it's either when consent is explicitly denied or wasn't given. In this case, it doesn't seem like consent was explicitly denied, or in a situation where they were forced to be unable to give consent, such as in a situation where somebody's knocked out or unconscious, right? It's based on what they described, that they went through with it because they just wanted to get it over with, and because they were attracted to them, so they felt obliged. Based on that, that's how the testimony goes. But you understand what I mean.
Convey what conventions where these incidents occurred.
Okay, so
That's up to them.
Okay, so you do not know the exact conventions, if that's how I'm understanding what you said?
I do, but the victim didn't want to share them.
Okay, so would it be possible to at least know?
I do, but the victim didn't want to share them. Well, according to this document, that's not even the case, because they did want to. They did in fact end up share. They did end up sharing a location in their tweets, which their account has now been deleted. So we do know where these conventions are.
The time, as in the more exact time, rather than the stuff provided in their thing here, such as 2013 or...
That's another thing. You make a very good point, Bradley. That's another thing. Allegations like these should always be reported to the police first, because a law enforcement officer will give you advice, or at least tell you whether these allegations have any weight at all. They will attempt to like sort of like, you know, rationalize the series of events that took place to sort of identify whether a crime took place or not. They won't just pursue as like, you know, somebody for rape without there being like, you know, enough information. So before like anybody ever platforms allegations like these, they should 100% go to police officers first before coming out with their story. Because that way, if there's something there, you will get justice for it when they start investigating. Proper justice instead of a vindictive shot at their reputation. And you will have something solid to actually take a vindictive shot on their reputation for, instead of something that is obviously done, or not obviously, right? It's not obvious, it's speculatory. That was seemingly done as a reputational smear, as a hit piece, as a hit job.
2012, 2011.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give you anything more than what's on the testimony. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's completely fine. I at least wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do anything that might jeopardize the victim's anonymity because that's really important to them.
So I gotta ask at that point, why the hyper focus on the anonymity?
Because they're afraid they're going to get harassed by Saber fans, which is fair based on how everyone's treating me. So, based on how the video's, you know, not doing. So, which is, I feel like is very, very valid.
So, like, I do gotta at least say, looking at it, the video itself does not seem to hold a lot of water on their allegations, which may not sound, because this is just off our convo. I'll be watching the video after our conversation, but it seems more like this is someone coming out without the ability to really prove any of it.
You can't want to remain anonymous and then divulge all of these details, make your story more believable, and expect people not to connect 1 and 2 and then be like, oh my god, we know who you are. And now we can rationalize your story in a completely different way, in a completely different perspective.
But
You could say, I mean, you know, you could say it that way.
Also, Saber would absolutely
It
know.
happened so long ago.
because it's also
But yeah,
like,
that's a fair respect. Go ahead.
because it's also like, hey, Saber could also turn around and sue this person for defamation if there's no
Correct.
evidence that can hold up in a court of
It doesn't matter, because they're gonna know who this person was anyways.
law. And
Correct.
and like looking out for the alleged victim and everyone else involved.
It doesn't matter. They're gonna know who it was anyways. This isn't like some Epstein sort of case, or like some Diddy case, or some like Andrew Tate case where they have so many victims. This isn't like Andrew Tate, who has had so many victims that he's treated in the same way over the course of several years, right? Wanting to be anonymous, where the person could probably forget who exactly it was that they harmed in a certain way. This is seemingly at a very specific event, at a very specific motel, at a very specific date, which was actually named, which was actually given out by the victim in her tweets. He's gonna know who you are.
So, gosh. So when you were given these, I guess, testimonials, or at least story of what was alleged to have happened, how did you verify the claims? Such as, did you ask them for like a proof of like, hey, I was here, here's photographic evidence of me and him, or me and him talking?
He's just going in circles. He already asked this question. How do you verify the claim? He already asked this earlier.
Or
I didn't have anything like that. This was purely off trusting her word based on what I knew.
Yeah. I didn't have any evidence. All I had was hearsay, and I just trusted her word based off vibes. Yeah, same stuff.
Or their word based on what I knew about them at that point.
Is there anything else to this? Is there anything else to this, please?
I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that when everyone was satisfied with the testimony, then I gave a copy to Bonk and to Sophie to put up in correlation with the video.
okay. So I'm gonna be as blunt as possible with this, just off of our.
Hold on. So not only did she get not only did she get this testimony, but then she recklessly spread it around to people who I assume believed you at your word. Because, okay, hold on.
Who is Bonk?
Bonk is the person who runs the BronyFan Twitter.
Okay, wanted to at least know that.
Sure.
So Bonk is heavily involved in this.
Again, I don't know his relationship with the victim. I don't know I don't know how they, like, I think Amy introduced them. I'm not 100% sure. All I know is that when everyone was satisfied with the testimony, then I gave a copy to Bonk and to Sophie to put up in correlation with the video.
Okay.
All right. So, when everybody was satisfied with the testimony, I would assume what she means is that she sent it to her peers that are equally as idiotic as she is, right? And then she sent the testimony to this individual, Brony Fan Don't, which exploded on Twitter, by the way, after this individual posted it on Twitter, too. I'm assuming that Brony Fan Don't was under the impression that these are well-vetted allegations, when in reality, they weren't well-vetted allegations at all. So not only were these allegations published in 2 separate occasions, KimPossible, KP, was the individual to bring forward these allegations under false pretenses. That's insane. That is insane. So realistically, for all we know, Brony Fan Don't / Bonk had no reason to believe these allegations at all. As well. Yet they were published on Twitter to a tweet that got hundreds of thousands of views on the first day with no due diligence. Because KP brought it forward to him. That is insane. Again, that is speculation, but that is insane to think about.
So I'm going to be as blunt as possible with this, just off of our conversation, and given that the video is deleted as well, I feel like these allegations may not hold water under extreme scrutiny. Like
that's valid.
Yeah, because I'm a YouTuber. I've been falsely accused of things before, and I've also...
She's not even attempting to fight. She's not even attempting to fight for the probability that these allegations may be true. Like, internally, subconsciously, she knows that these allegations are not going to hold up under scrutiny. Yet she brought these allegations forwards anyways, because the vibes felt right. That is insane.
Fucked up stories before, and this kind of stuff is very important to try and get right. So the fact that there is no evidence provided, aside from testimony, is it's concerning and pretty dangerous, if that makes sense.
Great, I understand your perspective.
So, oh gosh, that kind of wraps up a lot of the questions that I had.
Wait, so this is actually just reckless disregard for the truth. This, unironically, is legitimately just reckless disregard for the truth. She knew that these allegations could have been scrutinized and then hold no water, yet she pushed them anyways. That is insane. That is actually insane. That is such like fucking reckless, amateur, irresponsible behavior.
Because pretty much those are the only questions that I had.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the only thing I think could be provable is their attendance at the conventions where this happened, but that will obviously show their face, and I don't even think they're comfortable having people know which conventions the incidents were at.
I understand.
So, which is valid. So, that is hypothetically in the realm of evidence that I can think of, but that's on the victim to make that call.
Okay. So, yeah. See, told you, no gotchas were going to come up.
I mean, you did ask tough questions. You were very, like, are you...
No, those questions were not tough questions. They're only tough questions because you're a fucking moron. That is insane. That is actually insane. Okay. On to the document portion. Now that we've reconciled all of that. Somebody released a document compiling all circumstantial evidence to try to point out who this anonymous accuser is, to try to get to the bottom of these allegations to bring, like, more things to light. So here we have SaberSpark allegations evidence. This doc will start off showing evidence that the allegations against SaberSpark have some credibility to them. Again, that doesn't mean that it is exactly rape. It just means that the allegations themselves are not entirely fabricated, right? They're not 100% fake. It's very difficult to call the allegations definitive rape. That's not to say that nothing didn't happen. Something probably happened. It probably just isn't as malicious as it is being portrayed. It does not confirm the incidents happened, just that both Saber and the accuser were there at these locations on the date stated. I will then address the alleged victim's own past allegations. This person claims to say, I am 100% sure that I am right. Who knows, though? Because there's so many murky and shady actors in this entire drama. Even the photos may provide more constant possible proof. No, them simply being there is just all that proof is just that they were there. It doesn't prove that a rape definitively happened. Because for all we know, these like sexual interactions could have just been a miscommunication rather than actual rape, right? Even if these people did have sex, that doesn't mean anything. That does not mean anything. It just means that they had sex. It doesn't mean that this person was raped, sexually assaulted, blah 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 blah, right? Because rape and sexual assault is a very, very specific thing, and typically people are falsely accused of rape. People are falsely accused of sexual assault as well under misunderstandings. That happens all the time. That happens very much all the time. By them. Okay, so they state the anonymous accuser is Emu Emmy. All underlined colored text will be links. So this is Emu Emmy. Seems to have been they seem to have been a creator in their own right. Let's do some cross analysis. Let's see how close these two people look. I mean, the nose shape is similar. He's obviously wearing a wig, so it's difficult. Smile is similar. The teeth are similar. I can't tell the color of their eyes. Like grayish, brownish. They're obviously not blue. They're dark. Eyebrow shape, somewhat. Large forehead. Thin physique. Yeah. I mean, looks pretty darn close. Looks incredibly close. I wish I could see their name tag better. I have more, though. I have more. That's obviously the same woman. I'm not going to claim definites, okay? Without 1000% honest to God evidence, without definite evidence and claims, without this person popping out of the screen, themselves telling me that I am Emmy Emu, I do not, or Emu Emi, whatever the fuck their name is, I do not care, okay? I am going to say, allegedly. I am going to say that they might be the same woman. I am not going to definitively claim that they are the same woman, okay? That is dangerous. But I do have more. I do have more. Okay? I do have more information. Courtesy of one of my agents. I do have more high quality imagery. It seems like a pretty... Okay. Wearing heels. They're wearing heels. What the fuck is a name tag? What's the name tag? I mean, that looks like an E. 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 They obviously look incredibly similar. Again, this is just alleged. This is just alleged, right? But I feel like this person's document is kind of on point. But this is just speculation, to be clear. This is just speculatory. This is 100% speculatory. To be clear, okay? I have to make that abundantly clear. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. SaberSpark was a frequent con attender in the past. He still attends cons today. But most in the past were brony related. I have the timeline of his visits from around the dates of the incidents, but I will only go over the Canterlot Gardens con and Equestria Los Angeles con, which is where the alleged incidents occurred. Irrelevant. We already know the allegations. We don't have to go through over them again. Canterlot Gardens, the incident location. This con occurred from September 27, 2012 to September 30, 2012 at Strongville, Ohio. September 14. Saber made a response to a deleted post from Emmy at 2:10 a.m. No idea who Emmy's other tweet this day was addressed to, but I assume it was Saber because according to the accuser, they had been talking for a while. It was tweeted at 3:41 p.m. Emmy Jones tweets, "I'm so yours for the taking." So if this is directed at SaberSpark or somebody or like, you know, or SaberSpark in any way in general, right? This shows that there was some flirtatious communication going on, right? This shows that that there was some sort of flirtatious communication going on, some sort of sexting, which are all important details in the argument of implied consent, which I have referred to in the past couple of, like, you know, videos that I've covered the situation. I have more. Emily posted a YouTube link that tagged SaberSpark. Videos unavailable because SaberSpark deleted a lot of his videos, which happens to be a huge misconception that people don't seem to understand yet. SaberSpark may have had a huge gap between the time he posted his 2012 Ballad of the Brony video and 2014, but that's because he deleted a lot of videos in between those 2 years. Travel to Ohio and stream was drafting the guys on Everfree Radio. We already know that. Awesome time at Canterlot Gardens so far. It is great seeing all my friends again. Well, has landed, chilling at the airport, waiting to board Canterlot Gardens bound. Streaming with the draft and the guy. We know that. Wait. Okay. Emu Emmy posted a pic at 2:58 a.m. Location of pic unknown. Most likely their own room for the con. Shirt in the background is suspect though. They may be overthinking it. Yeah. 20 December 12. There was a tweet. There was a tweet that the fucking account Sunmouse made, right? That said that they had that they met with SaberSpark a day before the con. This was 27 September 12th. They said it was a day before the con. This con occurred from September 27, 2012 to September 30th, 2012. Strongsville, Ohio. SaberSpark did floor coverage on the con, also hosted his first panel. We know this. I already pulled it up in a previous live stream. This is the day the accuser said the incident happened. SaberSpark publicly interacted with Emu Emmy / at Nami Talia on this day, which, by the way, also happens to be right here. Hush now, quiet now. Interesting. I think the odds are the SaberSpark allegations are all fake. In regards to it being a rape, I don't think it's a rape. The odds of the allegations being definitively fake, I don't think that's the case. Anyways, back to what we do have. So let me redo this real quick. SaberSpark did floor coverage at the con, also hosted his first panel. This is the day the accuser said the incident happened. SaberSpark publicly interacted with the Emu Emmy at this day from Twitter at 11:35 a.m. They are talking about, like, meeting together with other people such as Paleo, and they're talking, and SaberSpark is saying that they see her, right? The circumstantial evidence is all there that these people at least met in this situation. SaberSpark, Paleo, Stino, SGAP at a meal with EFR staff and the Kraber family. Got to enjoy a nice meal with EFR staff. This one is for Mondo Pony, Cody Games. It should be noted that for this con, SaberSpark and Paleo Stino shared a room, which we know already, right? Which we know already because of that image that we saw. This con occurred from November 3rd, 2012 to November 5th, 2012. SaberSpark's friend, ACR Race or AC Race Best or ACR Ace Best. SaberSpark's friends, ACR, created vlogs detailing their time at the EQLA con. They have a lot of videos of them attending other cons and doing the other things, but I will only list the videos related to the EQLA. Day 1, November 2nd, 2012, which is when the alleged incident occurred. The con was at the Anaheim Convention Center, and the hotel was Anaheim Hilton Hotel. Okay? The accuser has said the incident occurred at night on November 2nd, 2012, day before the convention. SaberSpark spent the day at Disneyland with Dusty, Michelle Kreber, Screwball, ACR Ace Best, and Final Draft. At night in day 1, part 3, Race drove... Okay, it is Race. We have more tweets here. Awesome day at Everfree Radio at Disneyland, because they all went to Disneyland together. With birthday, happy birthday. So yeah, this is just like evidence showing that they all met together. Today has been awesome. Voice is basically gone. November 4th, EQLA panels, video playlist. Emmy posts a pic of Everfree crew. Yeah, because they met together. Seems to have been happy to be there. And this would have been post the initial. This would have been after the end, the incident took place. It would have been after the incident took place. Earliest interaction between Saber and Emmy. So these guys were keeping contact all throughout this year as well. And then in 2010, in 2012, December 10th, confidence level dropping. Note that what I've shown for the cons only proves that they were indeed at these locations together. It sucks that they came out right as Skype died, and have no screenshots of the messages between them from Skype, which is strange. Their tweet on September 14th also does not help their case. Okay, so we already covered Casey. We don't have to go over that again. I was just going to stop and confirming that SaberSpark was at these locations, but I had to explore more after these accusations came in, specifically on Casey's accusations of the alleged victim, not of KP. I believe that the reason Emmy wanted to stay anonymous is not because she is afraid of being doxxed, She is already a well-known internet figure. I believe that they wanted to get the accusation out on Saber without her past sullying her name and the credibility of the accusation. And yes, her past is that bad. Here's where we get into the fucking juicy part of this potentially being motivated from malicious place. From a malicious place. Context. I did not spend too much time going into every single little detail. I will list the main horrendous acts they have done and link to one of many sources on the subject. Emu Emmy / Emily Jones has committed adultery with Ryan Drummond. Wow, and ruined his family allegedly. Not too sure how true that is. Lied about her mental health to her fans and made a GoFundMe for herself, which usually always occurred while she was on vacation. Lying to her fans to use money to fund trips when it was supposed to be for therapy for her. Harassed a cancer victim, this is all alleged, by the way. apps. Stolen artist's work, Spark's channel, profited off that work, gave no payment to them, almost caused him to end it all. Again, alleged. Slut was spared to the blue so she could replace the blue-eyed Fox's tails in a project after Fox had already recorded all the voice lines. If true, that's fucked up. But again, this is only alleged. Purposely used her loyalist fans to harass and sabotage people she has issues with, even attacked one of her own because she didn't want them reviewing a certain Dr. Phil episode. And that's not even halfway into the video link below. Give it a watch if you want to know more. I did not look into KimPossible Lot's allegation about making a false rape claim, but if you want to, feel free to do so. Queen Phil, okay. Don't care, but we could probably look this at a later date. And this is the Black Griffin stuff which we can get to at a later date. Which is, Black Griffin being chill with what's it called? This is SaberSpark being chill with Black Griffin, right? Which would be a motivator as to why Emmy came out with the allocations in the first place. We can see Black Griffin is a freak in his own right? Talking to minors, 14-year-old in this case, in very inappropriate ways. That's a story for another day. As of today, anonymous accuser has deleted deleted their accounts. I do have screenshots of most of their replies, which I went over in a different stream already. But just for the sake of having everything in one place, I'll go over the tweets. So the Sun Mouse deleted their accounts. Here we have evidence that they went to Canterlot Games. They're providing more evidence that they went to these events or that they were present at these events, right? Like Equestria LA, right? That they were both present there. Which both, Emmy was proven to be at this place as well as as at Canterlot, according to this. And they're talking about how their Skype. They're talking about their Skype right here and saying how all of their contacts were wiped, or how all of their messages between their contacts was wiped. Last day or so has been really triggering, honestly. It didn't even really hit me to come forward because I have always maintained quiet and felt I should never cause a problem by saying something. But when venting privately, I was encouraged to come forward. Again, this is also incredibly important because who knows how this person was encouraged or what type of, communications or leading questions were asked or leading implications were made during this conversation, because it's entirely possible that for the longest time she would have just felt uncomfortable about an encounter, but didn't consider it rape until she was pushed to believe that it could possibly be rape, as we talked about previously about how implied consent is being heavily talked about and even sort of denied, right? Who knows what exactly was put into her brain that made her come to this conclusion or to interpret this situation in this way, right? Who knows? Who knows? I should have assumed people would assume it's fake or for some to blame me. But reading someone say I deserve it left me getting sick. I don't think anybody's actually been saying that unless they're malicious trolls. I didn't delete anything personally. No, I abandoned my Skype for years and moved to Discord. I thought of Saber as a friend, and we would definitely have agreed. We interacted to both their messages and publicly, so his friends knew of me. Okay. Again, that adds a little bit more to previous information or to previous conjectures that I've made. Respectfully, I'm not in a courtroom where most of these cases aren't taken seriously. I'm just describing the events as they happen. I was scared. I freeze up when I'm scared. I was afraid to say no because of potential consequences. Well, did you freeze up because you were scared, or did you freeze up because you were, nervous about a sexual interaction, which is sometimes normal for people to get incredibly nervous during a sexual interaction. If you're not getting nervous during a sexual interaction, then you might be a cold-blooded killer. Wondering why go to KP and Brony fandom to help you inform your story. Well, now that we know, She went to KP first, not Brony. Brony got it from KP. I didn't go to them exactly. I talked about it privately with a friend of mine who knew them and was the courage to speak up. Took photos of the cons and even shows up in videos and vlogs on YouTube. It is all in plain sight, but obviously I can't point in those because I am choosing. Okay, more corroboration, more corroborative evidence. Ways to share with you friends, and I heard through mutual people that his friends have told people that I took his virginity, which left a horrible feeling in my chest. I am scared of being identified and been targeted. Okay, again, this has been refuted. But this also plays into that previous allegation, part of the allegation that we talked about, where she felt conflicted by the way that her friends talked about the situation, which again, might have been a motivator to accuse this as being rape, rather than, you know, treating this in a more amicable way. If I were to be identified, it wouldn't just affect me. It could affect my family if I'm targeted. Which again, is a pointless argument because you are a public figure. Wait, hold on. Unless she's afraid of being targeted by SaberSpark specifically, which, again, is kind of pointless because eventually people were going to piece this together. I mean, I sort of pieced this together a long time ago. Even before this document, I sort of pieced some of this together. I just didn't know that it was Emmy specifically. Hold on. SaberSpark's first video was... Okay, this is irrelevant. This is a misconception. The answer is that. I already answered that. There's no way people don't know it's me. Yeah. People knew it was you, as is evident by this document. I'm the alt account of the person who wrote this testimony. I didn't willingly make out with him. Where does it say that? We already went over this. We don't have to go over that again. I have pictures that I took there, but they are easily traceable back to me. True, as we have noted. I went back because the second time wasn't in a hotel room. I didn't expect it to go south. I unfortunately was way too willing to let people have another chance around me. Which again is kind of implicative of the fact that this might have not have been a rape, right? Not to mention that she seems, according to the videos that we witnessed, to be incredibly cordial and amicable around the person. So it doesn't seem like this person was perturbed, and that's not to deny that they may have potentially been assaulted. That's always a possibility. It's more so to say that the details being, you know, laid out here aren't incredibly consistent, right? The possibility that this person was sexually assaulted is there, but the chances of that being the case exactly the way that it's being laid out isn't high. Dates were given right here, September 28th, November 2nd, 2012, lines up with the document, lines up with, you know, when these events took place. Most of our conversations were in text anyways, which I would hope she would be capable of providing these texts because they could suggest either sexting was involved, which would be a form of implied consent, or would suggest that they were leading up to a sexual interaction, which would again detract from the claims of rape more specifically, because all of these contexts and all of these dynamics are important when you take everything into consideration, or when you take, you know, like sexual interactions as well. And also, there's something really important here to mention as well about power imbalance. Or power dynamics, right? You can't say that there was a power imbalance if both of you were very prolific figures at the time. So this is a load of bullshit. Holy fucking shit. How did I not come to that conclusion earlier? How did I not come to that conclusion earlier? Oh my god. How did I not come to that conclusion earlier? To say that this is a power imbalance, that there was some sort of power dynamic at play here, is completely egregious, because both of these individuals were public figures. There was no power dynamic. It is a leading implication. It is a leading implication. There was no power dynamic. Both of these individuals were prolific figures in their own right. Oh my god, how did I not connect that earlier? So there could not have been a power imbalance, as is claimed in the testimony, because both of these individuals were prolific in their own right. This story is completely like falling apart. This story just completely fell apart. So my final conclusion on this is that it was more than likely not a rape. It was more than likely just a terrible miscommunication where she felt where she was incredibly uncomfortable with the interaction after the fact, but that is not indicative of a rape. Feeling regretful, feeling uncomfortable is not the same as rape. Do I feel bad for this person? Yes, but the way that this story was handled seems like a shot at this person's reputation. It seems like a shot at SaberSpark's reputation, and it seems incredibly messy all around. So if something did occur here, and people are being incredibly skeptical of it, and it is incredibly difficult to believe, it's probably because the way that it was handled, both by the victim and by the people that retold the story out in public, did a horrible job at laying out this testimony or this allegation. That's the conclusion. That is the conclusion.